Hi, it's Tony Robbins. Happy Labor Day to you. I'm here in Fiji right now, and I just finished a program here with a group of entrepreneurs and owners of companies from 11 different countries. And it made me want to send out this little message to you because many of these people have been coached by us over the last couple of years. Many of these company owners were in really bad shape just a few years ago in 2008 when they were taken totally by surprise with the change in the economy. And since it's Labor Day, I thought it was interesting to see how many of these people have now literally doubled, some tripled their business, some grew their business by 20 or 30%, depending upon the size of the company. And we have literally small companies here and a billion-dollar company here as well. So the breadth has been quite amazing. And how this relates to you is I'm thinking about what is it that these people did as I interviewed them over the course of these last couple of years to not just survive, but to thrive in the most difficult economic environment that any of us have faced in our lifetimes. And as most of us know, it's not going away. I mean, it's Labor Day and it doesn't seem to be much to celebrate for labor. We're in a situation where most of us, our labor is probably the most sacred gift we can give another human being besides our love. It's our lifeblood. And so many people don't even have a way to do that. 14 million Americans out of work, hovering around a little over 9%. What's probably even more scary is we have the highest number of people on food stamps at any time in history. It's 15% of Americans on food stamps right now, which right now is near 25 million Americans. So these are not easy times, to say the least, and I'm not here to send you a pump-up message, but I am here to say, when things are seemingly out of control, what can you control? Because if you and I sit and focus on what we can't control, all you'll feel is depressed and down. In fact, right now, the most recent studies show that Americans and virtually people and most of the modern world today don't have much of a perception about a good future. And what I mean specifically is 63% of Americans now say they believe their best times are behind them, that the quality of life for themselves and their children will be worse in the future than it is today. That's a pretty horrific number. It's even worse if you look over in Italy and in Germany, where it's 70%. Even more difficult in France, where 80% of people think their best times are behind them. Well, the problem with that is once you believe it, it becomes self-fulfilling. Because when there's no possibility of a great future, you don't even try. You go into what we call learned helplessness. And I'm sure you're not one of those people. In fact, the research of our group is done. We took those same Q questions, or a whole series of them, and we sent them out to our audience just to see what our audience, the people that attend our seminars, the people that follow my books and some of our tapes and information and audio programs, what do they believe? And it was interesting. While less than 20% of Americans think they have real control of their financial future, 73% of our audience says that they believe that their future is in their own hands, that they can't count on the government, they can't count on anybody else to do it. Government spent trillions of dollars and we still have this challenge. The challenge is because we're going through a winter. It happens every 80 years. It's a period of time when things are much more difficult and certain generations rise and deal with how to deal with that. That isn't being positive. It's just saying, what's your alternative? Fold up in a ball and give up? 71% of our audience that's a business owner says they're in control. While most people think their financial situation is going to go down over the next few years, 87% of our audience thinks it's going to go up, and 90% of our audience outside the United States think they'll be in better financial condition 2 years from now than they are today. Now you could say, well, that's just a bunch of positive thinking stuff and these people are deluded. But if you know my work, you know it's not about positive thinking. Really, I think what we have to do to be successful is we got to look at the truth. You got to do three things if you're going to lead your life and not get caught up in that cultural trap where everybody's giving up. Because again, it becomes self-fulfilling. The first thing you got to do is see things as they really are and not BS yourself. I mean, it's a tough time. We got $14 trillion plus in debt. We're in a situation we have so much unfunded liability. Who knows what the real number is on unfunded liabilities of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. I mean, it's gigantic. But we also have incredible resources and creativity. And anytime the American people have faced a situation that seemed like it was completely outside their control, we've eventually found our way through it. We found a way to creatively add more value to other people's lives. Breakthroughs in technology, breakthroughs in the way in which we add value around the world has made us be able to be successful as a country and as a people. So these numbers are disturbing, and I'm not sitting on the sideline just going, wow, here's how you can do well. The Anthony Robbins Foundation, I'm very proud to tell you, is feeding over 2 million people this year in 35 countries, because our students aren't just in America. This last year, what we've done is everyone who goes to our live events, we donate a certain number of meals in partnership with the local community. So in South Florida, for example, we tied in with the organization there, and we fed 200,000 meals down there as a result of the seminar that we did in that event. So But I do believe that while if you're doing well, you got to give back, I do believe that, you know, it's a Band-Aid to just to feed someone, although we've got to put out the Band-Aids. It's a Band-Aid to, you know, just try to pump somebody up. What we really have to do is do what these business owners have done. We got to get people to have a breakthrough. What a crisis does is it gives people an opportunity to revamp their life. I mean, listen, contrast is 75%, 70% of the planet lives on less than $2 a day. Our biggest challenge is somebody else's greatest dream in this country. But what we do have to be able to do is say, when you have a crisis, when you have nowhere to go, it's like how do you take the island? You burn your boats. When you have to make something happen, that's when we find our breakthroughs. And what I can tell you is there's not a person who's watching this right now, you or I, anyone we know, who isn't going to experience extreme stress in the next few years. Even if the economy was perfect, the law of averages says we're going to have extreme stress. I mean, something's going to happen in your life. You're going to have a home burned down. You know, you're going to have somebody in your family who develops heart disease or cancer and dies. You're going to have some situation where you're going to be a robbery or, God forbid, a rape. You know, there are so many things that happen in a human being's life, and we all experience it. The difference in people is not that we don't experience stress, it's we learn how to use stress and instead of let stress use us. And that's critical. Because here's what I found. If you look at it, everybody talks about post-traumatic syndrome, you know, this post-traumatic stress syndrome. But they don't study the people, the small percentage that respond positively to it. And those people have post-traumatic growth. And the people who make it through stressful times, the people that become more emotionally fit, the people who become stronger, the people who take the worst situation, and they don't give up. They don't say, the end is here and let the sky is falling. They know how bad it is, but they don't make it worse than it is so they don't give up. That's the first key. See it as it is, but not worse than it is, so you don't give up. So you don't find yourself having a self-fulfilling prophecy where your life does not become any better than it is now or potentially even worse. But the second thing these people do that have extreme stress is they see it better than it is. They look and create what I call a compelling future. If you don't have a compelling future, you're not going to make it through the tough times. And you might be in great shape right now, but I'm telling you this not just for you, but just as a reminder so that hopefully you can reach out and help somebody else maybe who is facing challenging times, or when you lose perspective. When you get stressed out about maybe the financial stress or business stress or emotional stress in your life, you got to remember, somebody's got it worse. I can handle this situation. I'm strong enough and I can find a way to make this thing happen. And you're going to apply yourself to make it occur. If you see it better than it is, without a vision, people perish, it's said. So if you want to recommend, if I could recommend a book to you or anybody you know that's having challenges, one of my favorite books of all time is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And if you haven't read the book, please read it. It'll remind you how great your life really is. Viktor Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist who in World War II was locked up in Auschwitz with his family. And he witnessed the loss of everyone in his family. They were burned up in the ovens of Auschwitz. And living in a place of the furthest thing from humanity, something looks like hell on earth. And, you know, we've all seen the photographs of the suffering and the disaster of what was done to the Jewish people in this situation. These people, skin and bones, barely surviving. He discovered an interesting pattern because he's a psychiatrist, and the pattern was the people that survived and the people that even thrived in the worst situations on earth were people that created what he called a compelling future. They created a reason to make it through the tough times. They believed there would be a better time ahead of them. They envisioned it, they remembered their family, they pictured going back home. Many of them lived for one purpose alone. They said, I'm going to make it through this suffering because I'm going to tell the story so this never happens again. And the Jewish people developed that whole mantra of never again will this happen to anyone, not just the Jewish people, but anyone else. And so that mindset, that focus on seeing your family, what he personally did, what Viktor Frankl did, is he kept envisioning himself telling the story, telling people about what happened so this wouldn't happen again, inspiring people to remember what they're capable of, telling the stories of the men and women that made it versus the men and women who didn't make it. The ones who didn't, you invariably knew who they were. They took their food and they ate it as quickly. They lived for the moment. They didn't create a future to plan for where things could be better. And so, if there's anything I know in my life and working with people, without a compelling future, you will not maximize your ability. So do yourself a favor. You can hear everything you hear, but it follows us everywhere in the news. You don't shut the news off. You see it as it is, but not worse than it is. $14 trillion in debt. It's huge. It's mind-boggling. But at least at the current interest rates, that's about, what, $300 billion a year, if my math might be off slightly, and interest. That's something that a $14 trillion economy, which is what we generate, plus we can handle that piece if we get our spending in control, and if we potentially raise taxes. Depends on whether you're a Democrat or Republican, but either one, I think, you know, we got to do a little bit of both if we're gonna turn things around. The point of the matter, though, is there is a better time that's coming. Winter does not last forever. I don't care how tough it is. If you look over history, there was a generation that was born in 1910. Check this out.